you forgot, rich man? Well, then let me remind you. Let me call to your remembrance. In your lifetime, you had good things. You lived in a nice apartment. We had nice things. Are you listening to me? Can you imagine how that must have come back from Abraham's lips to that poor rich man down there? There he was. Oh, man, I'm tormented. I'm tormented in these flames. Have mercy, have mercy. God said, I'll mock you.
Thanks for tuning in. I'm Hali Palombo, and this is Unknown America, a show about figures and events and places and little pockets of time unique to America that often fall under the radar. Today's episode will be about notorious shortwave radio figure and preacher, Brother Stair. In 1978, a man named Ralph Gordon Stair, or for our purposes, Brother Stair, bought a motel on a hot day in Walterboro, South Carolina, after a literal crisis of faith. Following a short stint as a Methodist minister in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, he walked away from organized religion because he had other ideas. He claims that he came to a realization that Methodism would not protect the people from an apocalypse he believed to be certain. What is more likely than anything is that he wanted control over a group of people, and he wanted to make money. We often called the subsequent maneuver starting a cult. Stair ventured south, a place he believed was the safest place for Christians in the end time, and started a commune in dense woods, with the aforementioned motel serving as the nucleus, surrounded by either mobile homes or houses shoddily hand-built by his followers. His followers were instructed to take a vow of poverty and donate everything they had to Stair's church that he named the Overcomer Ministry. As of 2021, there are about 70 of them. The women grow their hair long and secure them into buns on their head. They wear dresses that touch the ground. The men wear collared shirts and long pants. Stair rejects Easter and he rejects Christmas, forbidding celebration of both. He rejects modern technology, except for internet and the radio, of course. That being said, given the remote nature of the compound, Stair drew them to him via a handful of channels, but primarily one, the radio. Mentioning Brother Stair to most shortwave radio hobbyists, even the most casual, will elicit laughter, groans, irritation, or some combination of the three. You see, Brother Stair doesn't limit his sermons to a typical 1 hour a week, or even 1 hour a day. Stair broadcasts from free-to-air satellites like Galaxy 19, Hotbird 8, Optus D2, and Tycom 5. He broadcasts on 6 international shortwave radio stations: WHRI, WWRB, WTWW, WWCR, WBCQ, and WRMI. This flings his message across the planet to countries and continents far outside the United States: South America, Africa, India, Russia, Australia, Europe, Israel, and more. He broadcasts from a solar-powered studio at his motel headquarters in the middle of the woods for hours at a time, every day. If his obsessive broadcasts have netted him any followers in other countries, that remains to be seen, but I reckon it's likely.
I'm going to pay him. He said, you let them slap you on your cheek. That's going to give me a right to slap them on the cheek. He said, don't you know my slap is bigger than theirs? He said, you let them kick you when you're down. He said, then when they're down, I'm going to kick them. I talked about that at the table tonight. Boy, can you think of the justice of God when he looked down to Abraham and saw the rich man down there. Hey, Father Abraham! Father Abraham! Send Lazarus! Send Lazarus to dip his finger in water and come and cool my tongue! Abraham said, hey, he said, hey, you remember?
While his prolific output would be ultimately forgivable, yet quite irritating if it were someone of a more benign nature, especially being that he was, and is, a tremendous source of income for shortwave radio stations, often enabling them to stay on the air simply by purchasing airtime. Brother Stair exists on the more maniacal fringe of the Christian faith. He claims to have prophesied 9/11. He claims to have prophesied Hurricane Katrina. Not in dull tones. His sermons, sometimes 4 or 5 hours long, consist of racism, primal shrieks, and incredible hatred of all other Christian ministers, which he openly and frequently proclaims, rejection of modern medicine, speaking in tongues, sometimes in a room alone with just a microphone for company, sometimes in a room full of his followers, and of course, every New World Order conspiracy theory that you could fathom. Often, since he purchases so many slots, you can hear multiple broadcasts from Stair at the exact same time, just by flipping around to different stations. It is infrequent that a person this baffling and hateful isn't followed by a slew of horrible problems. In 2002, Stair was arrested, and in 2004, he pled guilty to misdemeanor assault and battery. Roughly 80 days later, he returned to his commune without a word and began broadcasting again as if nothing had occurred. In 2007, his former followers had filed suits against him, and he was forced to pay damages of $700,000. Things functioned normally for a while, but then on December 18th of 2017, Stair was arrested at his compound for sexual assault, kidnapping, burglary, and sexual contact with a minor following an extensive FBI probe. His excuse, of course, was to tell all of his victims that the acts he committed were all God's will. 10 days after the arrest, this message was posted on the Overcomer Ministries website. Attention Overcomer listeners. Due to legal difficulties, as of January 1st, 2018, the Overcomer Ministry will not be broadcasting on AM, FM radio, and shortwave. The Overcomer broadcast will continue on satellite, telephone, and this website stream. 3 weeks later, Stair was released on a $750,000 bond. The funds were, to my knowledge, produced in a casual and effortless manner by a colleague. I cannot figure out how he procured them. After this, he returned to radio without a word, where he has remained ever since. He, as mentioned previously, gives his sermons in a little studio in front of a microphone, or in a chapel surrounded by followers. If you navigate to Overcomer Ministries' website and view the photos uploaded, you will see a group of people that for all intents and purposes look fulfilled. In some photos, people are working in a field harvesting the crops for meals they will eat. In others, people, nearly all elderly, are sitting in a mess hall around long tables, smiling into a camera or looking off into the distance. Given the positive, if a little strange, nature of these photos, one can assume they are carefully curated, as if you search for Brother Stair through other channels, you will see his bedraggled mugshot, a website created by an incensed shortwave hobbyist dedicated to painfully meticulous dissection of all of his sermons, photos of FBI swarming his compound, stills of him screaming sermons into a microphone locked in a red-faced hauler. Those sermons are shot from his microphone into space, reflected from satellites like Hotbird 8 and Galaxy 19 back into homes in Missouri, India, China, Russia, and the Philippines. Nothing can keep him from his mission, not prison, not prosecution, and perhaps not even death. He is 87 years old, but his followers will likely keep him on the air via pre-recorded sermons for as long as they live. or until all that mysterious money runs out. If you have a deeply morbid curiosity and would like to listen to his sermons, you can hear them live on his website at overcomerministry.org. You can also hear them by subscribing to his service that texts you a different telephone number every single day at which to hear Stair live. If you'd like to attend a service at Overcomer Ministries and see the man in the flesh before he dies, they're held weekly at 12680 Augusta Highway, Walterboro, South Carolina, 29488, around 10 a.m. If you'd like a ride there from Chicago, let me know. From here to there are a lot of long roads and trees and hills and bridges, but I like long drives. I don't mind. I'm curious. But I suggest wearing a disguise. You wouldn't want them knowing who you were. Thank you for listening to Unknown America. Hali Palombo, signing off.
So he'd eat the cockroaches. And of course, he couldn't barbecue them, you know. They weren't barbecued cockroaches, brother. There was a little old sister sitting here with us. Her name was Consuelo, a good old friend of ours. She said, I could never do that. And I looked at her and I said, suppose eating a cockroach would mean life or death for your daughter. Suppose you're standing somewhere and a guy had a gun to your daughter's head and said, if you don't eat that cockroach, I'm going to blow your daughter's head off. Would you eat the cockroach? Oh, yeah. Do it for your daughter, but you won't do it for Jesus.